know I've been gone for a moment, but now I'm back. Everybody has always asked me, am I hooping? Yes, I'm hooping. Absolutely. I'm a hooper.
That was Chris Bosh on Snapchat saying he's hooping this season. His last 2 seasons with the Heat have been cut short due to blood clots, and in February 2015, he spent a week in the hospital when the blood clots went into his lungs. Max, do you think Bosh should return?
No. And it's not for me to tell him what to do with his life or how to risk it. But from everything I can gather, I'm not a doctor. I don't know that you need to be to have an opinion on this. If he's on Xarelto, which is the blood thinning medication, which, you know, if you have blood clots, and now this has been twice, oftentimes you're not taken off. If you are taken off and another blood clot forms, obviously it could be life-threatening potentially. And while that wouldn't happen from him dribbling a basketball, and yes, he plays away from the basket oftentimes, sometimes there's contact, and it becomes really dangerous. Chris Bosh was drafted really high, was the best player on a playoff team, a 20-10 guy, was one of the best players. He was in the nucleus of a great team that won multiple championships. He's a multiple-time All-Star. He's made a fortune. He's had a great career. At this point, though it's, as I said, it's his life, I think it's a really bad idea for him to risk that life for a little bit more. I don't quite understand why he'd want to do it. I don't see where he achieves anything he hasn't already achieved. And by the way, I also believe, Stephen A., Chris Bosh, one of the most underrated players of the era. Several years ago, when I was telling everyone on the radio, on Max and Marcellus, and on Sports Nation, he's better than Kevin Love, I was derided for that opinion. Kevin Love's giving you 27 and 12 or whatever it was. Like, do you watch them play? He's a better two-way player. I think he's really underrated. He's a great player, Hall of Famer in my opinion. Can't say enough good things about his play. Unselfish, always played hard both ends of the floor, didn't care about his stats. I think he's had a great career, but at this point, why would he risk his life, which it seems to me, you know, the team finds 5 doctors and then he can find one and say, no, he's going to be okay. But it seems to me most of them are saying, this is really dangerous. I wouldn't do it.
I respectfully disagree. But I'll emphasize the word respectfully because I know that you're thinking about his best interest, his health, not just basketball. What I would ask you to keep in mind is that a few things. Number one, Chris Bosh is a grown man. He's a grown man that's a 2-time champion. He's one of the smarter guys that you'll ever encounter. And he's just a flat-out good, decent young man. He has a family. He has weighed the risk. And it's one he wants to take. Now, obviously, you don't want to put him out there. The Heat don't want to find themselves in a situation where they'll be liable. There are ways, all the specifics are too convoluted, too complicated to get into. There are ways to work around that. I remember I spoke to members of the Heat organization after reporting on this a few months ago because I got some details. I spoke to some insiders. I pretty much learned a lot of the stuff that was going on. And Barry Jackson, who does a good job covering this team out of Miami, wrote today, he said, look, one of the reasons to clear Bosh off the cap, the labor agreement says, quote, a doctor that is jointly selected by the league and the Players Association must agree his condition, quote, is career-ending or severe enough to put him at risk if he continues playing. Chances are, you know, if you're the Heat, you're not going to be able to find somebody in concert with the Players Association so all sides can agree on this. If there is a dispute, Chris Bosh owed $25.3 million this year. In 2017, 2018, $26.8 million in 2018, 2019. You can give the Miami Heat some cap relief. I know Andy. And Pat Riley is class personified, and Mickey and Nick Arison. Tim Donovan is my boy. I love him like a brother. You're talking about a first-class organization. But Pat Riley hasn't always made the right decisions. It wasn't intentional. You know, he didn't want to lose D-Wade, didn't want to lose LeBron, but you got to handle things differently, and sometimes he's got to see the forest through the trees. I mean, you got to know better than that. And I say all of that to say that Pat Riley is of this decision, of this mindset, that it's a risk that he doesn't want to take. Well, listen, it's blood clots and blood thinners you're talking about, Chris Bosh going on. Alonzo Mourning was a different situation. It was his kidney. But whatever Alonzo Mourning wanted to do, you supported him. You got to support Chris Bosh in this particular situation. You can have him sign a waiver. You can make sure that the liability in terms of the risk are more put on his shoulders than it is on that of the team. But if this man wants to play the game of basketball and he's going through all the necessary precautionary measures to ensure that his health, is paramount, I say he has earned the opportunity. I'm going to repeat this. Not only is he a two-time champion, he's a damn good man.
Now, this is where I agree.
He has a wife. He has at least 4 kids, possibly 5. I mean, the guys, I think it's pretty safe to say that Chris Bosh cares about Chris Bosh and his family more than Pat Riley and the Heat do. And I'm sure they care about him, but I don't think it's more than Chris Bosh cares about himself and his family. And if he believes and has validation from doctors that says he can play this game, let him play.
But if the majority of doctors feel differently, look, you have a fighter who's in a really tough fight, and he believes he's got a championship heart. Obviously, Chris Bosh has a championship heart. And he wants to come out for that next round, and you may find someone in the corner who says, yeah, he can do it. But
listen,
look, my point is, here's where I'm on the other side of the argument from the Kaepernick argument. He has the right, I believe you, I agree with you, to keep playing, and I'm sure he's weighed the risks for himself, and I don't mean to be patronizing. Hey, son, sit this one out. But precisely because of all the reasons you said, I think there's a prevailing sense that people hope that Chris Bosh is okay and maybe want to protect him from himself in this instance. In terms of the Miami Heat, I had a very cynical view about it originally because I thought they're trying to turn the page once LeBron left. They can get rid of this money, and Chris Bosh gets paid because of the insurance if they have a medical excuse and they get cap relief. But the more I look at it, the more I think Chris Bosh, if he can play, is an excellent all-star caliber player. Even at 80% of what he was, 70%, he's still way better than most. The max contract has gone up. So actually his money, go find me a better player for that money you could acquire right now. I really do believe at this point my opinion's changed. I do not have such a cynical view of what Miami's doing.
Well,
I have much more of a view now that they're thinking it's not worth the risk for him.
I'm not going to let Miami off the hook that much. But what I will say is, cynical view or no cynical view, what this comes down to is a player's right to determine and dictate his own future. And you can't snatch that away from him. He has a contract. He'll get his money from insurance. If he can't play, well, guess what? He wants to play. And if the doctors say Chris Bosh can go, the Miami Heat need to have a pretty damn good reason for denying him.
How many doctors?
Wait a minute.
Like, if he just finds one, that's okay?
No, and I'm not saying just one, but the point is whatever the best is, whatever the best counsel is. But what we can't do is have Miami sitting on the side, issuing no statements, not even telling Bosh what's up, saying he's not going to play. He deserves more than that.
I would say this. If the prevailing medical opinion is that he can play, I'm with you. If it's that he should not, I would say best to not.
Chris Bosh is not going to play if the prevailing medical opinion is that he can't play.
We got to go. Got to leave it there. Coming up next, bad news in Minnesota as Adrian Peterson will have to have somebody besides Teddy Bridgewater handing off to him this season. We'll preview the Vike season after the break. As we mentioned earlier, Teddy Bridgewater suffered a dislocated left knee, and an MRI revealed the complete tear of his left ACL and other structural damage in practice yesterday. So Bridgewater's out for the season. His backup is Sean Hill. Westgate Las Vegas Superbook is now projecting Minnesota to win 8 games this season. They were 11-5 last season and won the NFC North. Damian Woody now with us. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Always good to have you at this desk.
Yes.
Hopefully it'll cause a little trouble for us.
Not too much.
But not on this subject. Damian, are the Vikings done?
Absolutely not. I mean, listen, we don't know what the Vikings, what their plans with Teddy Bridgewater, what their plans were as far as expanding, what they want to do with him offensively. But remember, this was a team last year that pretty much marginalized the quarterback position. The Minnesota Vikings had the fewest passes in the NFL, only 14 touchdown passes in the NFL. They had the 5th-ranked scoring defense. So you really got to understand how this team is built. There's a guy in the backfield, I don't know if people remember his name, called Adrian Peterson. You know who Adrian Peterson is, right?
I think so.
Yeah, he's pretty good. Okay, so this team is going to run the football. They're going to line up in 2 tight ends. They're going to play smash mouth. Going to try to go over the top. and they're going to play great defense. That's a Mike Zimmer type of team. They're not going to, turn into Air Coryell all of a sudden and start slinging the ball over the field. That's not their MO.
The fact that they seem to be taking steps forward in terms of Bridgewater's development. And it's not just that they won 11 games in a division where if anything happens to Green Bay, it's not the strongest in the world, but that they were maybe going to take a step forward this year, that they could win some playoff games, they could make a little run if Bridgewater develops, and now you take that away.
Well, I think they could have, in all honesty, they should have won that fluky playoff game against Seattle. So this is a team, if you look at them now, they're actually better this year on paper, even without Teddy Bridgewater not being available for 2016, how they solidify other positions on the team. So, again, this is a team that's built on defense. Mike Zimmer, former defensive coordinator. They have more weapons on offense. They've upgraded the offensive line. It's going to be the same formula again. They're going to run the football. They're going to play good defense. And that's how they're going to win football games.
Damian. What's your definition of success for this team?
Playoffs.
So just make it. So if they make the playoffs and go home after one playoff game like they did this past year, you'll consider that for success?
Well, I mean, if we're going to be cliche-ish about it, then every if we're going to use cliches, all 32 teams, the goal is to win the Super Bowl. There's only one winner and 31 other losers. So
it's not a cliche.
Can we get to the real? Can we get to the real topic here?
I am going to get there if a brother answer my question. I don't understand. I mean, what's the scare? Were you scared to answer the question? You scared to answer the question? If the Vikings go to the playoffs and don't win a playoff game, is that your definition of success? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
Okay, we disagree there. Here's why. Because to me, progress is success.
Right.
Stagnancy is not. If you get to the playoffs and you go home just like you did last year, it's a problem. Matter of fact, this year will it be even worse because last year you should have won that game if your kicker made the damn field goal, a chip shot, and instead of missing it. But here's where it gets interesting for the Vikings. Their defense is stout. We understand that. They went from like 30th in the league, okay, to like 5th in Zimmer's first year. These boys are no joke. Zimmer knows what he's doing. He's a damn good coach. Fair enough. Defensively, I have no doubt that they're stout. Offensively, you improved your offensive line. You still got the best running back in football. I get it. But Laquan Treadwell, a rookie, Stephon Diggs, I like him. Your leading receiver caught for 720 yards. Your leading receiver. And so when I look at the Minnesota Vikings, I've got questions about their passing attack. As a result, they're going to lean heavily on the run, which they should, because we all know that. But Damian Woody is one of the people that used to talk to me and was like, look, man, certain cats defy Father Time, but only for so long, Stephen A., because even though a guy like Adrian Peterson is a stud, eventually something's going to happen. You're going to have to give him some help. So, yeah, they gave him a little help with the offensive line. I got that, particularly with Boone going there. That's why you don't want Kaepernick there. But from the receiver's perspective,
good point, actually.
From the receiver's perspective, I'm looking at a Stephon Diggs. I'm looking at a Treadwell, Kyle Rudolph, I'm just looking at it and I'm saying, excuse me, let's look at the NFC because you do have to actually play people. You don't get to, it ain't shadow football, like shadow boxing. You actually have to play opponents.
Okay.
So let's look at those opponents. Carolina.
Okay.
And Arizona.
Right.
And Seattle. And Green Bay. You know.
Sound like you're picking division winners. You do know there's like two wild card spots, right?
What I'm saying is,
okay.
I'm saying if you don't get a playoff win, to me, that's not successful if you're coming off a berth to the playoffs the year before. You were going this way.
Okay, so
you gotta make progress. What is so hard to understand?
So let me ask you this question.
Yes.
How many teams make progress without their starting quarterback? How many teams?
I don't know.
You're talking about, the Minnesota Vikings need to, advance in the playoffs. But how many teams make actual progress as a team
this is why
without the starting quarterback?
Time out. I hate to say it. I'm with Stephen A. on this one.
Okay,
it kills me to do
I'm
it.
listening.
You're killing me right now.
Okay, I'm listening. Go ahead.
What you're
He's just showing his wisdom. Don't get upset about that.
What you're admitting is that, since, we're saying, are the Vikings done? You're saying no. He says, what is the standard for success? And you're like, making the playoffs. And I agree with you there.
Right.
If they make the playoffs, that's a success because they lost their starting quarterback. But the point is, because they lost their starting quarterback, our expectations are diminished. The standard for what is a success has lowered, and we don't expect them to win a playoff game, right? I mean, isn't that what we're saying?
That's your expectation. You know, you can't put words in my mouth. I still believe that they're going to the playoffs.
Well, will they win a game?
Wait. Yeah, I don't see why not. Let me hold on. Let me tell you something right now.
Just changed a little bit.
With Teddy, yeah, just a little bit. You know what?
Just a little.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's all right.
All right.
It's okay. With Teddy Bridgewater as the quarterback, this is a team. They didn't even really rely on the passing attack. Okay? They didn't even rely on. It's all about the defensive running game. So this whole notion, let's get back to the original question. Are the Minnesota Vikings done? Done would mean to me that you don't even have the opportunity to play for a Super Bowl, meaning you're not making the playoffs.
I don't think they're making the playoffs.
I think they are making the playoffs because look at what happened last year. The quarterback position was marginalized. They didn't even ask Teddy Bridgewater to really do anything, and they still made the postseason.
Jordy Nelson healthy this year.
See, unlike Max Kellerman and unlike Molly, see, I'm going to call you on this because you see, I actually recall the things that you say. You see, remember when I tell you I give my speeches, I'm brilliant. Because I know I'm not. I listen to those who are. And I heard Damian Woody on several occasions talk about predictability, talk about the fact that what worked one year ain't going to necessarily work the next year because now we see you coming. Now, if you are great, that would be different. But because they're not great, because they're average or slightly above average, the fact that they don't have much of a passing game, the fact that they're going to have to rely on their running game, the fact that they're going to be able to do the same things that they've always been doing, and you consider the other teams in the NFC, it's not going to be good enough. You're supposed to upgrade. You're supposed to elevate.
They did upgrade.
How did they elevate?
They upgraded the offensive line. They upgraded the wide receiver. They did
upgrade the wide receiver. How? So Stephon Diggs can play. I know he can play.
Okay.
But Laquan Trevor, so you're relying on a rookie?
No.
You're relying on a rookie?
He's going to contribute. There's no question about that. Listen, from where the quarterback position was last year to whoever's in there, it doesn't matter. It's all going to be the same. They're going to play off of their identity, defense, and running the football.
I think the question was, 43% of their offense was the run. That's high.
The question was, are the Minnesota Vikings done? Yes. And I say no, because the same formulas that they had last year will work again this year.
They will play 9 games and they will miss the playoffs. They will win 9 games and they will miss the playoffs.
Oh, well, that's why they play the games, right?
All right, that's right.
So when it's all done, then I'm going to come back and holler at you. We're going to have the discussion.
Let's do it then.
9 wins. They sound like a done team to me.
Can we go to commercial? Thank you.